What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of The Breakdown. My name is Andrew Bolton, and today I have with me Mr. Gabriel Revilla.
What's up, guys?
Did I say that right?
Yes, you got it right, man.
Okay,
Absolutely,
so fun fact. I don't know if I've ever told you this. So I didn't know your last name for a long time.
Okay.
So I saved your name in my phone as Gabriel College because you were working with our college ministry. Now, young adults, which you lead. And then there was one time, I feel so bad telling you this, and now I'm telling you this on YouTube to the world. So there was one time I was trying to invite some interns over for dinner, and there was an intern named Gabrielle, and her last name started with a C also, that looked a lot like College, but I accidentally put you on the text instead of her, and you're like, hey, bro, sorry, I can't make it. I'm like, awesome, I wasn't inviting you anyways. But anyways,
that's so
yeah,
awkward.
it was very awkward. But anyways, it worked out. So I need to go in and change that on my phone. But I would still love to have dinner sometime.
No, for sure. Let's do it.
All right. Anyways, all right. So today we're talking about the passage from this week when Jesus shows up. Pastor Robby was in Luke chapter 8. I want to encourage you. This was a really good message, by the way.
It was awesome.
The previous ones aren't good, but this one was super solid. So I want to encourage you, if you have not seen it, to go back and watch that. We're going to link it below as well. So, Gabe, can you start off by reading that passage for us?
Yeah, the passage is actually Luke 8:26 through 31. This is in the CSB. It says, "Then they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes, which is opposite of Galilee. When he got out on land, a demon-possessed man from the town met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes and did not stay in a house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said in a loud voice, 'What do you have to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torment me.' For he commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Many times it had seized him, and though he was guarded and bound by chains and shackles, he would snap the restraints and be driven by the demon into deserted places. 'What is your name?' Jesus asked him. 'Legion,' he said, because many demons had entered him, and they begged him not to banish him into the abyss."
Man, kind of a crazy situation going on here. Pastor Robby started off by talking about how there's a couple reasons these guys weren't supposed to be going there. Like this, they're Jewish men walking into Gentile territory, which is something they weren't supposed to be around dead bodies. Yeah. They weren't supposed to see people naked in public, which that's going on here. So there are all these reasons that they should not be going here. The disciples were probably thinking, man, if my dad knew where I was going right now, he'd be really upset type situation.
For sure.
And then you have this man that is just an unacceptable man. And that was point one, the unacceptable human. And as I'm hearing this, man, I'm thinking of a couple different things. One, and we'll dive into these. Yeah. One, man, I need to be willing to go places that other people may say, man, what are you doing going there? Yeah. So that was convicting to me to think through, okay, what areas do I need to be entering into that maybe the religious people around me would be like, what is Andrew doing going there? But God is calling me to go.
For sure.
That's one thing. But the second thing is that this unacceptable human, man, that's me in this story. You know what I'm saying? That's you in this story. Sometimes we read the Bible and we hear sermons and we kind of paint ourselves as the hero. You know what I'm saying? But we're not the hero. Yeah. We are the unacceptable human.
Jesus is the hero.
Yeah, Jesus is always the hero. But as I listened to this sermon, it just made me think, man, what, I'm not possessed by a demon. Because I'm a believer, and a pastor even talked about in the sermon how a demon cannot possess a believer because two spirits cannot reside in the same place. You may be able to be, what did he say? The other word he said, but...
One of the points that he made was demons cannot possess us, but they can oppress us.
Oppress. Yeah. So oppression is a real thing. Spiritual warfare is a real thing. But anyways, as I heard this passage, I was thinking, man, there are things in my life that I'm tormented by. Oh, yeah. There's been seasons of anxiety and depression and fear, and man, I am my own worst critic. You know what I'm saying? So all these things you may be able to relate to are things that started coming. Man, no, I feel unlovable. lovable, all these things these lies that are in my head that I grab a hold of, I can relate. I can relate to this guy.
Yeah, and even going along with the whole, like, the fear and the anxiety and things like that come upon us, which oftentimes it really can feel like it's the enemy that's doing that.
Right.
One of the points that I felt like Robbie made that I was like, man, this is so spot on. He said, he was saying things like doctors, therapy, rehab are all great things. But in the reality, in the end, if we're not walking towards Jesus, it's basically vain.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a phenomenal point, because the reality is the person that heals us, the healing that we need is Christ.
And don't hear what we're not saying. Yeah. I'm a huge advocate for counselors. Like, I'm in counseling.
100%.
I'm a huge advocate for medication.
Absolutely.
And God has provided wisdom for people to create medication is super helpful. I'm a huge advocate of that, so don't hear that. Yeah. But Jesus is the answer for everything ultimately. You know what I'm saying? So, this may be a little different context, but there have been seasons, and I still do it today, where I look for my satisfaction. I look for, relief or whatever in other things other than Jesus, and they always fall short.
Exactly.
They always fall short. Exactly. But with Jesus is the answer for everything, which is what he talked about here.
Every time. Absolutely. I also thought it was really, cool, like him just really going into the whole understanding of this, like, demon possessed guy, and then just how that correlates with us, because I know that when it comes to topics like this, it might not necessarily apply to us, because I don't think I'm necessarily demon possessed, but we do experience moments of major fear, major anxiety, and things like that.
The oppression. It could very well be the oppression.
Absolutely. No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
We were just talking about how, man, we're huge advocates for counseling, for medication, for all these things, but Jesus is truly the answer. Pastor told a story. What about the story of that young boy who was hit by a car? Did you hear that? You heard that story, right? There's a story in the sermon this week of this young boy, and I want to encourage you to go back and watch it, who was hit by a car, who was crippled basically because he never went through rehabilitation. Yeah. The social worker stepped in. She raised money and support for him to be rehabilitated and learn how to walk again. It came to her office years later doing cartwheels. He learned how to walk again. And somebody asked her where he was this day. And is he a teacher? Is he a lawyer? Is he, a doctor? All these things. And she said, no, he's actually in prison for doing one of the most horrific crimes a human being could do. And it was heartbreaking to her. And she said this. She said, I realized that we taught him how to walk again, but nobody taught him where to walk. And that's kind of what we mean by Jesus is the answer. I'm a huge advocate for counseling and medication, but Jesus, that's where you learn where to walk, not just how to walk. When that kind of helped me connect the dots there.
Absolutely. I've been actually looking at recently John, when Jesus says, I am the bread of life.
Right.
Anybody who eats from me will never hunger again. So, absolutely.
So second point we're going to dive in real quick is an undeniable testimony. So here's the thing. This man didn't, know Jesus. Jesus did an amazing work in his life. And he actually asked Jesus, can I go with you? And what did Jesus say?
Jesus says, yeah.
No, he said no. No, he said, no, you didn't listen to the sermon. No, I'm just kidding. Jesus said, no, you can't go with me because I want you to go back and to tell your family. And I don't know about you, Gabe, but I struggle sharing my testimony. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's easy for me to go to hop on a plane, go to another country, go to another city, and to tell people about what Jesus has done in my life. But how hard is it to go to our neighbors at times?
Yeah. He brought up that point, and that made me think so much just about the context that we live in here, wherever it is that you live in, online, wherever that might be. The gospel begins with our neighbors. Right. And I love the original point. The gospel came to you because it was headed to someone else. Right. That's huge. Yeah. That's absolutely huge.
So as we wrap this up today, there are times in our lives where, man, God has done something in your life. He has saved you from our sin. But for whatever reason, we don't share our testimony. Maybe we're afraid. And we think that, man, if we share our faith, somebody's going to reject us or somebody's not going to talk to us anymore. And we have this fear. Or we share our faith and, man, maybe they're not going to accept it and therefore we're a failure. And we think that. Or maybe, man, my story's not as cool as this guy's story. So, I mean, who wants to hear my story? But I want to encourage you. One, it's not about you. Okay? It's not about me. We can't fail, okay? The Holy Spirit is the only one who can save somebody. Our job is to do the sharing. So if you share your faith with somebody and they reject it, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting Jesus, okay? If they don't accept Jesus, that's not, you can't save them. The Holy Spirit's the only one that saved them, so that relieves some pressure. Our job is to share. And if you're thinking, man, my story's not as cool as that guy's story or that girl's story, that is not true either. You were lost and on your way to hell. And it doesn't matter if you got saved when you were 5 years old. That's an unbelievable story of how Jesus stepped in and intervened and saved you from your sin. Okay, that's an awesome story to share. And you never know, there's people out there just like you who need to hear your story as well. All right, Gabe, any last thoughts? I'm preaching over here to the camera now.
No, well, I'll tell you this. One of the last things that Robby does, and I've looked at this passage for years, and I'm like, man, it's a really cool story. But he correlates it with Mark chapter 7 and Mark chapter 8, where basically this guy goes back, tells his family, and tells this town basically about what Jesus did, and basically about his testimony, kind of like what you're sharing. And then sure enough, in Mark 8, where do the 4,000 come from? They come from his town. And they all come to see Jesus. And this is where Jesus performs the miracle of feeding the 4,000. And it's absolutely amazing. It blew my mind. And then when we transitioned into worship, I'm just bawling my eyes out.
That's
just amazing grace. It was awesome.
So listen, you never know who's on the other side of your obedience. Let me leave you with that. You never know. This guy went back to his people, shared his testimony, what Jesus had done. Now you see 4,000 people coming to see Jesus, and God does an amazing work there. So you may be scared, you may be fearful, you may not think your story is awesome. I'm telling you it is, and God has done a work in your life, and you never know what's on the other side of your obedience. All right, y'all. We will see you next week on The Breakdown.
Take it easy.